the trip began in Guatemala City, where we skated for a couple of days, and from there we moved to Tikal to see some Mayan ruins. After that, we drove to Belize, which is a small country on the Caribbean. And in Belize, we checked out some more Mayan ruins. There were not so many skate spots, so we kept it moving and went to Chetumal, which is a border town in Mexico. Skated a bunch of spots there, and from Chetumal, we made the drive to Mérida. And of course, we saw some ruins on the way.
Yeah, it was my first time in Guatemala City. Very good first impression of driving into the city. It was all these really unique house spots, and it was like everywhere we looked, there's a spot. We'd roll up to a spot, look across the street, there was a spot. So Guatemala City was very nice to us, skating-wise and food-wise and everything else.
Well, Guatemala City, I had no idea what to expect. And turns out it's like a San Francisco of the South, man. There's so many downhills, so many spots, and I loved it, man. I loved the city.
The locals in Guatemala were super nice. They were local skaters, Paulo and Raul, and Diego too. And to meet the local people there is really helpful because you never know what's gonna happen in Guatemala. It might be sketchy some places you don't want to go. And yeah, we were skating in the ghetto, and this pretty sketchy looking guy came across, and he had this tattoo on his face too, which is a gang member or something. In the end, he laid down, we jumped over him.
After 2 full days, I was exhausted and stepped into a hole, rolled my ankle. Well, it was terrible for the first part because me and Jaako, we also got food poisoning. And I was going on the plane with Jaako, and we both had the worst 30-minute flight ever, and I could barely move. I'm in a wheelchair, but yeah, The next couple days in Tikal, when everybody went to see the ruins, unfortunately I had to stay back and just basically relax, play some guitar here and there.
Tikal, it's one of the greatest wonders in the world. It is estimated that the ruins were constructed 400 BC and they're still standing, so that's pretty amazing. It's hard to explain when you're actually walking up the ruins and getting to the top and seeing the top of the jungle. You really kind of take in how large these ruins were. Walking, pyramid to pyramid is pretty crazy because you're walking through the jungle. So there's all kinds of wildlife. There's the toucan birds that we saw. There's wild turkeys. There's anteaters. We saw the spider monkeys jumping from tree to tree. And one of the monkeys had a baby on her back. Seeing all this wildlife and then walking out of all of that, it really puts in perspective of how advanced the Mayans were.
Once we were done skating Guatemala and checking out the ruins of Tikal, we made it to a brand new country, Belize. A place where they speak English, they have Rastas chilling on the side of the road. It's a whole different culture.
The people from Belize, they weren't too familiar with skateboarding. It was kind of a trip because people would constantly come up, shoot photos, or want to talk, or want to try and ride the board. That part was actually awesome. I actually gave an old board away to someone that used to skate. So I was like, hey man, get back on the board, skate.
We were the first international skate crew to go there. But it was super hard because of the heat and the humid. I never skated in that hot weather.
So once the skating in Belize City was done, we were going to check out some more ruins, this time Lamanai. To get to Lamanai, we had to take a boat. There we seen some fishermen were showing the fish that they had just caught, and some Mennonites, which are kind of like an Amish type of culture that live far away from our regular society and try to use minimal technology as possible. After a 1-hour exciting boat ride, we finally made it to Lamanai. So here I'm holding the new Mayan calendar, which began in 2012, when a lot of people were thinking that it's gonna be the end of the world according to the Mayas. Well, we're still living in this. Lamanai is the third oldest Mayan site in the world. It's popular because it holds the largest mask ever found in Mundo Maya. And only a small portion, which is 6 out of 739 structures, are visible because everything else is covered up by the jungle. By the time we got to the top of one of the largest Mayan pyramids, some crazy sounds started coming outside of the jungle. thought it was a jaguar perhaps, but later found out that it was a little monkey called the howling monkey who's fighting for his territory. Kind of sounded like my dad sleeping, honestly. After seeing the ruins and skating Belize, we started making our way towards Mexico in hopes to find some better spots.
Came over across the border to Mexico. When we drove in, the difference was almost instant. It was a game changer compared to battling spots in Belize. There's a lot of driving on this trip, coming to city, and I always really enjoyed driving through countries I've never been through because, one, you're in a van with all your friends, and we would stop at these small towns and just get lunch. It almost feels like someone's house, you know? It feels like home-cooked food. So we get to experience all these wonderful parts of driving through the country.
After Chetumal, we were gonna do the drive to Merida, and on the way there, we stopped by a lagoon for a little swim, and there were some rock-like structures called stromatolites, which are made of bacteria and they actually breathe, and the water was crystal clear and it was amazing. And that was not enough swimming for us because we moved on to Iquil, which is a cenote. And a cenote is a sinkhole, and this one is 18 meters below ground level and it's 50 meters deep itself. Luckily, we had access to it all by ourselves. Another awesome thing by Iquil was that we got to see Mayans and we got to see them dance. And apparently they still speak the Mayan tongue and they live in a Mayan community and this is what they do daily. You could only imagine what it used to be like 3,000 years ago.
After, 2 days of adventures, we're back on the road again, and it's our last city we're going to, and it's our last 2 days of skate. The town is called Mérida, and let's see what happens.